Okay, let's talk about 146 through 154. Number 146, area of a rectangle. Some people talk about rectangles in terms of length and width. I really prefer using base and height because then we can use the same letters in a lot of these different formulas. Okay, so area of a rectangle is base times height. So area is base times height. I would have accepted area equals length times width because either way you're multiplying the two dimensions. But the next one, area of a triangle, area equals, well, a triangle is half of an associated rectangle. So if this is base and height, notice that the triangle is half of the rectangle that you could kind of make around it. All right, so it's 1/2 of base times height, or you could say base times height divided by 2. Area of a trapezoid. A trapezoid, first of all, looks like this. Okay, and it has two different base sizes. Okay, one way I like to think of it is that this base right here, 10, and this base, let's say that it's 8. If I used base times height, and I did 10 times, let's say my height here is 3, and I used 10 times 3, that would be too big for this area, okay, because it would include this area over here, and it would include this area here. So 10 times 3 would be too big. On the other hand, if we did 8 times 3, it would be too small, because 8 times 3 would have to be this area inside there, and it wouldn't include enough. All right, so if it's not 10 times 3, because that's too big, and it's not 8 times 3, because that's too small, that's why you average the 8 and the 10. Okay, so you average the bases, and then you times by the height. Now, a lot of times people write out that averaging the bases part this way. 1/2 of base 1 plus base 2, and then times the height. Okay, that's a good way to do it. All right, so average your bases and times by the height. Don't forget that all these areas, the answers will be in units squared, like square inches or square feet or square miles. All right, area of a circle, just memorize it. Pi r squared. Pi times r squared. Next one, formula for a parallelogram. Parallelogram is basically just a tilted over rectangle. It's like a rectangle that somebody leaned on too hard and it kind of squishes it. Well, basically on this you can use base times height again, because if you think about it, if I tilted, kind of pushed this thing back up straight, it would look like that, right? See what I mean? If I kind of pushed it from here, and the base times the height would still be accurate. Another way to think of it is you could cut off, here, I'll get rid of the green one for a second. I could cut off this part right here, and I could move it over there, and it would be a rectangle with base times height. Okay, so the area of the parallelogram is base times height. All right, on to Pythagorean theorem. A squared plus b squared equals c squared. It's important to know these are the two legs, and that's the hypotenuse. So if I'm looking at a triangle like this, and I've got a 3 and a 4 here, and I'm trying to figure this out, the legs are the two that make the right angle, okay, and those are A and B. It doesn't really matter which one's A and which one's B, but this one here has to be C. The hypotenuse has to be C. Okay, moving on. Use proportional triangles to find question mark. Well, question mark is right here. Could have called it X or something, but I decided to use a question mark this time. All right, proportional triangles. Well, basically, I'm looking for two triangles and using proportions with those triangles. I see that triangle down there in red, and I see this big triangle here in blue, and I can say, oh, well, technically, I think I should be using similar triangles here, and I can say that this, I'm going to start using X for my little question mark, that if I was going to set it up, I can in a proportion like this, that's when I use the word proportions, the proportion would be, and you can set this up several ways, but X on the small one is like 9 on the big one, just like 2 on the small one is like 6 on the big one. Okay, so that's one way I could set it up, and it would work. I can go 6 times X is 6X. Remember, this is cross multiplying, and 9 times 2 makes 18. And so x must equal 3. All right, if I didn't want to set it up that way, I could actually set it up a different way. I'll show you that. Either way, I better come up with the same answer. And let's see. If I took x and said x goes with 2 like 9 goes with 6, that should also give me the same thing. Okay, 9 times 2 is 18, 6x, 6x equals 18, x must equal 3. That's what the other one answer should have come out to also, is x equals 3. All right, next, the distance formula. I could tell you like 15 minutes worth of how to derive this based on the Pythagorean theorem, that really it's a triangle you're setting up and all that stuff. But in this case, I'm just going to ask you to memorize this, because I don't want to spend 15 minutes describing all of that. But x sub 2 minus x sub 1, okay, squared, plus y sub 2 minus y sub 1 squared. Okay, so again, it is based on the Pythagorean theorem, and basically you just solve the Pythagorean theorem for the hypotenuse, and then you'll have this. And it's the 2 points that are involved. The x's and the y's are the 2 points that you have, that you've been given, like let's say, 2 comma 5 and 6 comma 11, and you're trying to find the distance between those 2 points. You're just basically kind of making a triangle on your way from 2 comma 5 to 6 comma 11, and then you're solving for the hypotenuse of it. So that's the distance. All right, the midpoint formula I like to think of as just an average. So if I have these 2 points again, and I want to find the midpoint of them, the midpoint is the average x and the average y. Okay, so to find the average x, I go x sub 1 plus x sub 2 over 2, and the average y, which is 11 plus 5 divide, sorry, I should be using x and y, so I use y's. Y sub 2 and plus y sub 1 over 2. And again, I suppose I should write this in the same order, y sub 1 and then y sub 2. It does not matter because you're adding, but it looks a little more organized that way. Okay, so basically it's the average of the x coordinates and the average of the y coordinates will tell you the midpoint between these 2 points that you have. Okay, because you want the average of their x's and the average of their y's, and it'll be right in between. Okay, it'll be the midpoint, exactly in the middle. All right, that's all I have for you for now.